So this one's a big one. How does astrology work? This is the age-old question that's been asked for many years, and scientists seriously, constantly try and disprove its validity and make it out to be a pseudoscience. But in reality, if they only looked at their own science and took a different approach, I believe they would discover the reasons as to why. And I'll give you a quick understanding. If you think about what scientists do believe, and that is that we started from the Big Bang, I'm going to keep this fairly simple. The Big Bang produced, a big explosion, and it created light. Now, what we do know is, in order to do that, we only have one particle. The smallest particle in the universe are known as neutrinos. And neutrinos, what they do know about them nowadays, they were discovered in about they were hypothesized about in about 1930. Then they were discovered or had evidence that they did exist in about 1956. And in the 1980s and into the 1990s, they realized that these things do exist. And now they actually have neutrino collection devices, one of them called Ice Cube, believe it or not, in Antarctica, that collects in under the ground and collects neutrino information and neutrino build-up and that sort of stuff coming in from the sun. So ultimately, if you think about life's creation, then what we have really is two things: matter and antimatter. You could call it light and dark. And in essence, it might be what creates black holes. Maybe it's antimatter, and therefore they end up becoming a dark hole, and everything, what they do know is anything goes in there doesn't come out. So that's the antimatter. From a God point of view, it could be, God and the devil, black and white, that type of thing. I don't know. I'm not going to get into the political speak, or I should say the religious speak either. So more importantly, let's have a look at the idea of, so we have a knowledge that there is such a thing as neutrinos. They are subatomic particles. They pass through all matter. They do not interact with your body. The slower they move, the more they pass through you. The faster they move, there is an evidence that they may interact with something. I.e., if they hit, say, the nucleus of a molecule, they usually react by creating a burst of light. Isn't that very interesting? Because if you think about the universe, what are we made up of? Light. Without light coming from the sun, without the sun's energy, we would not have a planet to live on. Earth wouldn't be here if we didn't have the sun. As far as we're concerned, being very egocentric, person-centric, the sun going around us when we're actually going around the sun, but we're actually spinning. So in the meantime, what you have is a situation where the sun creates its own neutrinos. And if you think about our planets, and when I say planets, our planets within our solar system, Earth being one of them, and then a lot of those planets have their own moons, which also therefore evolve around them within their own gravitational force. We have a series of them going all the way, as we know them, from Mercury through to Pluto, and I still include Pluto as a planet, despite what people say scientifically, even though it's small. Each of these planets have their own day cycles, and each one spins at a different rate. Now, anyone who's seen a couple of my videos may, and I may be yet to do some of them as well, but more about the astrology of horse racing, and this is what brought me into this, was I needed to find out if planets had a physical effect on us and the outcome of events. But this is scientifically how I feel that it all works together. So what you have is you have the sun producing its neutrino bursts. Now, the interesting thing, scientists have also discovered that neutrinos reach Earth before light. Sounds amazing. They travel slower than the speed of light, but they get here first. You think about that. You wonder how that happens. It's because it's believed that photons, before they leave the sun's surface, spend time bouncing off each other first before being released out into the universe to go through as light particles. And neutrinos don't. They are instantly created and instantly produced, and they leave first. So they get here first, even though they travel slightly slower. So they get to the Earth, and what does the Earth do? It has all of this neutrino particles passes right through all matter as we know it. But it also collects within that, and don't forget our Earth is turning and spinning in its own gravitational field. So what is Earth doing? Or what are the other planets doing? We're collecting these neutrinos created by the sun. We're absorbing those, and we're redirecting them. We're sending them back out based on our gravitational force. So we're producing something back into the solar system based on the speed of rotation of our planets. Now, the reason this was important is in my studies over the last 30 years, and I can say that literally, one of the things that stands out when I'm looking at picking a horse race winner, the planets that move faster, i.e. spin faster, their day cycles are faster, tend to be the ones that stand out or create a more predictable winning situation, i.e. they have more energy and influence over it. And it doesn't matter if it's Neptune, and Neptune turning in, I think, 17 hours and 49 minutes, or maybe 16 hours and 50 minutes, or maybe it's Uranus at 17:49. So their day cycles, i.e. they spin. It takes them 17 hours approximately to turn one day. We're turning it just under 24 hours. I think it's 23 hours and 23.94 hours is our day cycle. Mars is around the 24 hours as well. You go to Jupiter, it's 9 hours and 50 minutes. Now, that's a big planet spinning damn fast, sending out a lot of energy. And Saturn also at 10 hours and I think 17 minutes from memory. So when you get to Venus, which is a bigger planet than Mars and closer to us, it turns very slowly. It's somewhere in the vicinity of 243 days to turn around once. And my belief and understanding is if that planet spun faster, we wouldn't exist and life wouldn't be able to exist on the Earth as it is today, because the energy it would be producing would be too strong for our spirit selves to be able to exist. So where this becomes quite interesting is you have two things. You have the sun spinning, I think it's every 27 days to turn around, and you have the moon takes 27 days to turn around, thereabouts. So they're in balance. And I also do believe that there is a strong reason why there's life on this planet and not on others, is because we have one moon that spins and rotates at the same rate as the sun. So everything is in balance between the sun and the moon, and that's a very important factor. So what if we were not just a physical being? What if, yes, life and thing is created, but do remember that everything comes from a vibration. A rock vibrates. You wouldn't think it's vibrating or moving, but it vibrates at its own frequency, no different to how water has its own vibration, how gases have their own vibration, how, we all different sorts of matter has its own vibration, and depending on how slow it vibrates, depending on how hard, soft or gaseous it happens to be. So we're going through this, and I'm being fairly technical but non-technical. So if I'm getting something slightly wrong, don't sit there and pick on me. You get the gist of where I'm at. So ultimately what's happened is that, why does an astrology chart work? Imagine this. So yes, we are, a woman is impregnated, she's going to give birth, and you have a child that comes out at a particular point in time. And the ancients have taken that and mapped the planetary positions at that point in time on the Earth and at the time of birth and the place on the Earth, and that becomes the person's astrology chart, which indicates what they're born into and therefore how their destiny will move. Well, how would that have a physical effect on us? This is the question. What if it wasn't the physical body? What if it was the spirit self that was absorbing it? Why is it that someone, for example, have you ever had acupuncture? You stick a needle in this area, maybe for a headache, and you go, well, what's that got to do with my head? Physically, it looks like it's nothing, but there is an energy meridian running through your body that happens to be working in conjunction with your body. And that energy meridian, I believe, is what the neutrinos produced by the planetary energies is what they're interacting with. So when you have planets at a time of birth and they may be in square with each other, it just means mathematically that we know free-flowing energies or triangular energy is quite strong. But when you have something that's in opposition, like magnets, they can either repel or attract. And if they square each other at 90-degree angles, they tend to have a bit of a weakness, or they challenge each other. So they're hitting against each other. I'm being very simplistic here, but that's sort of how it works. So what if at the time you were born, you come out, what's more important is not the physical body you're born into, but the spiritual soul attached to it. And that is really what the key is. And that spiritual soul comes out with an imprint, comes out knowing energetically that it's born into that energy field being created by the planets within our solar system at that moment in time. And that's what develops, and that's why it's predictable, and that's why it is the science of human nature. Anyway, have a thought, drop some information down the bottom if you like. This could open up a lot of questions and a lot of reasons why. So all the best.